Most people look at someone who rarely speaks about themselves and see a mystery to be solved. They see someone mysterious, composed, or perhaps just arrogant. They think your silence is a choice made from a position of strength, a stoic wall that nothing can penetrate. They imagine you are sitting on a throne of self-sufficiency, looking down at the oversharers with a sense of quiet superiority. But let's be honest, the truth is much sharper and much more painful for the extremely private person. Silence isn't a mystery. It's a high-stakes survival strategy. You don't hide your life because you have dark secrets. You hide because you have an incredibly long memory. A memory of a time when being seen meant being judged. A time when being open meant being handled, managed, or minimized. When sharing your inner world resulted in it being colonized by someone else's expectations, or worse, weaponized against you in a moment of vulnerability. You think you are being reserved, but your nervous system is actually practicing chronic high-alert hypervigilance. You aren't quiet, you are scanning the perimeter. You are weighing the cost of disclosure before every single sentence. You are calculating if the person in front of you is safe enough to receive a piece of your truth, and 9 times out of 10, your brain decides it's not worth the risk. The point is, your privacy isn't about what you're hiding from the world. It's about what you're desperately trying to protect inside yourself. You've mistaken isolation for independence. You've mistaken a cage for a fortress. By the end of this video, you will discover which version of this protective shield you're wearing and whether it's still serving you, or if it has quietly become your prison. If this already resonates with you, if you've spent your life being told you're hard to read, while you were actually just trying to breathe, subscribe. Here, we go deep into the psychological truth without the anesthesia until the final minute of this video. We aren't just going to list personality traits. We are going to decode the invisible, heavy cost of the armor you've been wearing for decades. You will understand why your brain views intimacy as a threat, and why, for you, being known feels less like a connection and more like an invasion. I can guarantee you this: you will stop feeling like you are broken or socially stunted. You'll realize that your behavior isn't a personality flaw, it's a highly adapted, brilliant response to an environment that, at some point, didn't know how to hold what you felt. You aren't cold. You're an anticipator of loss. To understand why you treat your personal life like a state secret, you have to look at the architecture of your past. Most people assume that being private is a personality trait you were born with. It isn't. It's a craft you perfected. As Gabor Mate often points out, children have 2 fundamental needs: attachment and authenticity. If being your authentic, expressive self threatened your attachment to your caregivers, you sacrificed your authenticity to survive. If you grew up in a home where your emotions were too much, where your tears were met with, "I'll give you something to cry about," or where your excitement was dampened by a parent's cynicism, your brain made a brilliant, life-saving executive decision. Visibility is dangerous. In these environments, your inner world was colonized. You learned that if you showed a vulnerability, it would be used as leverage in the next argument. If you shared a dream, it would be dissected until it felt small. So you built a basement in your psyche and moved everything precious down there. You became a strategic minimalist. You learned to give people just enough of a version of yourself to keep them satisfied, while the real you retreated further behind the glass. This is the birth of the internalized fortress. Daniel Siegel describes this through the lens of interpersonal neurobiology. Your nervous system developed an avoidant or disorganized attachment style as a way to regulate the threat of the caregiver, when the person who is supposed to be your sanctuary is also the source of your stress. The only way to find peace is to move away, not necessarily physically, but emotionally. You aren't quiet because you have nothing to say. You are quiet because you learn that your words are valuable currency, and you refuse to spend them on people who don't know how to handle them. But here's the twist. You've carried that childhood map into an adult world. You are using a 20-year-old blueprint of a war zone to navigate a peaceful neighborhood. You are treating your partner, your friends, and your colleagues like they are the colonizers of your past. The point is, your privacy was originally a boundary you set when you had no power. It was your only way to say no to a world that was constantly intruding. But today, that boundary has calcified. It's no longer a shield you pick up. It's a skin you can't take off. You aren't protecting yourself anymore. You are hiding from the very connection that could actually heal the original wound. In which of these moments do you recognize yourself? Was it the mockery of your emotions, or the constant intrusion into your space? Comment below. This auto-recognition organizes you from the inside out. Here is the twist that most private people refuse to look at. When you build a wall to keep the world out, you inadvertently lock yourself in with your own ghosts. In the psychology unseen perspective, we call this emotional anesthesia. You think you are just being selective or independent. But the nervous system doesn't work like a volume knob, cannot selectively numb emotions. You can't turn down the pain of being judged without also turning down the joy of being truly seen. The extremely private person often lives in a state of functional dissociation. You move through the world, you perform your tasks with precision. You are polite and perhaps even well-liked, but you are never fully there. Why? Because being fully present requires a level of vulnerability that your system has labeled as a lethal risk. You have traded intimacy for autonomy. You tell yourself, I don't need anyone. But that independence isn't a sign of evolved strength. It's a fear of attachment. It is a counterdependency designed to ensure you never have to feel the crushing weight of someone else's disappointment or abandonment ever again. You've become a world-class expert at the closed-distance dance. You let people get just close enough to feel like they know you. But the moment the conversation hits a certain depth, or the moment they ask a question that requires you to reveal a raw, unpolished part of your soul, you pivot. You use sarcasm. You ask them a question about themselves to shift the spotlight. Or you suddenly become busy and withdraw. You are an emotional strategist. It's constantly managing the supply of your presence. But the cost is a chronic, low-level fatigue that you probably don't even recognize anymore. It is psychologically exhausting to constantly curate a version of yourself that is safe for public consumption. It is tiring to be the editor-in-chief of your own life, redacting every sentence before it's spoken. The point is, your privacy has become a filter that catches the bad, but also blocks the good. You aren't peaceful in your solitude. You are just untouched. There is a massive difference between the peace of connection and the safety of isolation. One nourishes your nervous system. The other just keeps it from starving. You've spent so long protecting your inner child that you've forgotten that children need to come out and breathe. It's not just hide in a psychological bunker until the danger passes. You aren't living. You are merely avoiding. Asterisk, does your solitude feel like a recharge, or does it feel like a relief from the threat of other people?
Be honest.
Comment below, Nisty. With yourself is the only way through the wall. Here is the most paradoxical part of your psychological makeup. For the extremely private person, kindness can be more terrifying than criticism. When someone is cold or judgmental, it's familiar territory. You know how to retreat. You know how to tighten the armor. But when someone is genuinely kind, patient, and wants to know you, your system enters a state of high alert. This is what we call a narrowed window of tolerance. In the neurobiology of trauma, safe doesn't always feel good. Safe feels like a trap. Because for you, someone looking at you with warmth isn't a gesture of love, it's an interrogation light. Your brain thinks, if they see me, they can hurt me. If they know what I value, they can take it away. If they understand my weaknesses, they can use them. This is why you might experience a freeze response during a simple personal question. Your jaw locks, your throat tightens, and your mind goes blank. That blankness isn't a lack of thoughts. It's a protective dissociation. Your brain is literally pulling the plug on your emotional expression to prevent a security breach. You think you are being composed, but biologically you are in a state of hyperactivation. You are holding your breath, waiting for the other person to stop looking at you, so you can return to the safety of your internal fortress. The tragedy of the private person is that you are often a highly sensitive person, HSP, who has been forced to act like a robot to survive. You have deep, turbulent oceans of emotion inside, but you've frozen the surface so thick that people think they can walk on you without you feeling a thing. The point is, your mysterious aura is actually a physiological boundary. You aren't difficult to reach because you want to be special. You are difficult to reach because your safety has always depended on being emotionally invisible. But here is the twist. By staying invisible to avoid being hurt, you've made it impossible to be loved. You are starving for connection while standing behind a banquet table, refusing to pick up a fork because you're afraid someone might notice you're hungry. Does being known feel like connection to you, or does it feel like an invasion? Notice the physical sensation in your chest right now. That is your nervous system talking to you. The path out of this isolation isn't about becoming an open book, or suddenly oversharing your deepest traumas at a dinner party. That isn't healing. That's just the other side of the same dysregulated coin. True integration is about moving from privacy as fear to privacy as choice. It's about realizing that you are no longer in that room where being seen was a death sentence. You are no longer that child who had to hide their sketchbook, their tears, or their opinions just to keep the peace. Healing is the slow, deliberate expansion of your window of tolerance. It starts with a radical reframing. You aren't cold. You are an anticipator of loss. You aren't arrogant. You are hyper-aware of your own fragility. You aren't hard to love. You are just exhausted from protecting a heart that was never properly shielded by those who were supposed to be your guardians. Start by noticing the physical ping in your body when someone moves toward you emotionally. When a friend asks how you really are, or a partner reaches for a deeper truth, don't just run to the basement. Stay in the room for 5 seconds longer. Try a micro-disclosure. Say something small but authentic. I'm actually feeling a bit overwhelmed today, or I value my privacy, but I'm trying to be more open with you. These are the bricks you remove, one by one, to install a door with a peephole. You still get to decide who enters, but you must stop pretending that there is nobody inside. The psychological truth of the extremely private person is that you aren't hiding a dark secret. You are hiding a profound, beautiful sensitivity that you were once told was a liability. But here's the final twist. Your privacy is only a virtue if it allows you to rest. If it's making you lonely, it's not a boundary, it's a symptom. What do you do with intimacy when it finally appears? Do you treat it like a gift or like an interrogation? Your silence can be a place of peace, or it can be a place of hiding. Only you know which one it is today. If this reflection helped you see your own history without the weight of guilt, share it with someone who lives in emotional survival mode. Might be the first time they've been seen without being invaded. And hit subscribe. Psychology Unseen isn't just a channel. It's a shift in perspective. You aren't hiding anymore. You're just choosing who gets to see the light.